arresting those who promote violence are important steps, but they are not enough. He said, the communal poison has permeated the land, and we have to uproot this despicable communalism. It must be obliterated from this land so that it may not take roots again. To achieve this, Nehru says, the superior force of the state is necessary, but it is not enough. Because, as he said, those who are impelled by a faith in a cause, in other words, the bhakts, can seldom be crushed by superior force. They can only be defeated by a higher idealism. Very wise words. The higher idealism that he offered to communalism was a secular, humane, inclusive, pro-poor nationalism. In other words, not to abandon the nationalist platform to the communalists, but to appropriate it at a higher idealistic level. While waging this ideological battle, Nehru, the great believer in civil liberties and the freedom of the press, nevertheless argued that communal propaganda, spreading hatred through lies, rumors, creating enmity, should not be tolerated and must be suppressed with a heavy hand. He, in fact, in 1956, proposed a law that the media, which meant the press at that time, which spread hatred, I'm quoting him, and even made money out of it. You can see the resemblance to the TRP ratings that people talk about today, should be dealt with strictly and punished. You can see much can be learned from Nehru as we watch how the hate media flourishes today with state patronage. In section 4, I discuss Nehru's critical role in building and nurturing the institutions of democracy. A functioning parliament with respect for the opposition, not notion of opposition mukt parliament, an independent judiciary, less said the better, independent bureaucracy, a non-political armed forces, a free press, and above all for Nehru, an independent education system. What Nehru had to say about universities has already been quoted. Each one of these is under threat today. Each one of these institutions of democracy that I've talked in this section are under threat today. In the next section, section 5, I discuss how Nehru makes, and I underline, the historically unique effort at economic transformation with democracy and sovereignty. No country in the world made the transition to industrialism with democracy. I show how, in a very brief period, he was able to unstructure the colonial structure with massive progress in industry and agriculture. I also discuss how he anticipated the knowledge revolution nearly by half a century and made huge progress in the areas of science and technology, enabling India to participate at whatever low level in this global information and knowledge revolution. The Nehruvian model became an example, as I said, to other post-colonial countries trying to develop in a humane, democratic manner. In section 6, I discuss how Nehru succeeds in keeping his gaze focused on the poor, the oppressed, and disadvantaged. Never have the poor been abandoned as they are in India today. And that is what I have tried to talk about in this section, and why we need to look back at Nehru for this. I sum up in the last section with a brief discussion on Nehru and the scientific temper. Nehru's focus on the need to develop a scientific temper, a term he coined in the discovery of India, which the Constitution of India in Article 51A, laying down the fundamental duties of every citizen of India, is This notion of the scientific temper is being made a mockery of today. Nehru said, the scientific temper, I'm quoting him, points out the way along which man should travel. It is the scientific approach, the adventurous and yet critical temper of science, the search for truth and new knowledge, the refusal to accept anything without testing and trial, the capacity to change previous conclusions in the face of evidence, the reliance on the observed fact and not preconceived theory, the hard discipline of the mind. All this is necessary, not merely for the application of science, but for life itself and solution of its many problems. It is in this spirit that the quotation that was given about what a university stands for, that Nehru said, that it stands for humanism, tolerance, for reason, for the adventure of ideas and the search for truth. But in that paragraph, he adds one more thing which was not read out, which I shall read out to you. He says, but if the temple of learning itself becomes a home of narrow bigotry and petty objectives, how then will a nation prosper or a people grow in stature? Since all of us are involved in the university system and we are witnessing the effort to destroy it, from JNU to Delhi University to the UGC to just name every institution to the ICHR, these are words of Nehru that we must remember very, very much. What a contrast are we witnessing today? The university system I talked about. The Guardian quotes the current Prime Minister mixing up mythology about gods and goddesses with history and science while inaugurating a new hospital in Bombay. We can feel proud of what our country achieved in medical sciences at one point of time, the Prime Minister told a gathering of doctors and professionals. We all read about Karna in the Mahabharata. If we think a little more, we realize that the Mahabharata says Karna was not born from his mother's womb. This means that genetic science was present at that time. That is why Karna could be born outside his mother's womb. We worship Lord Ganesha. There must have been some plastic surgeon at that time who got an elephant's head on the body of a human being and began the practice of plastic surgery. This is your Prime Minister. The Hindustan Times reported the governor of Bengal doing violence to both science and history, who said, while addressing, paradoxically, addressing a science and engineering fair in Kolkata, he said that the mythological character Arjuna, his arrow had nuclear power, and chariots mentioned in the Mahabharata actually flew. He, as you know, has since been promoted to become the Vice President of India. No wonder in our country today we fight corona with state patronage, with gobar, gomutra, thali, banging of thalis, tali, shining torchlight, shining your mobile torchlights, Ganga Snan, and unverified medicines of a favored yogi. I mean, this is not a laughing matter that a country with such a long tradition of civilizational values and of scientific progress should be doing this. In sum, therefore, it is as if the political leaders have reversed their roles from that of pulling up society and bringing it in line with the highest global civilizational values, a role performed by the leaders of the Indian national movement like Gandhi and Nehru, to that of pushing society back by appealing to sectarian identities, acquisitive instincts, and traditional prejudices. The hegemonic idea of India, the common sense of the Indian people, created by the Indian national movement, is today severely challenged. And that challenge is not coming from a backward traditional people. Do understand, this challenge is not coming from our people. It is from the leaders and the state machinery. Nehru's fantastic effort to raise India from what Tagore called the mud and filth left behind by the British has now been replaced with the Indian people being pushed back into that same mud and filth of ignorance, obscurantism, disempowerment, unfreedom, and above all, communal hatred. Thank you.